What should universities do to improve students' critical thinking? By Laprelle Spitzenberg, Raquel Bobadilla Rios, and Lily Cossey. Hello, my name is Lily Cossey. My group members have
Give
created
someone
an
a fish and
informative
they'll
video
eat that
for
day.
you to answer a
Teach
question
them how
with
to
growing
catch a
concerns.
fish and they'll never
That
go
is,
hungry.
what should
Proverbs like
universities
this
do
remind
to
us how
improve a
learning
student's critical
skills helps to
thinking?
move us towards
Now,
self-reliance.
we have a short video to
This is
introduce
never
what
more
critical
true than with
thinking
critical
actually
thinking.
is, to help you as a viewer
Memorize the
understand
solution
more
to
about
a
the
problem
question
and
that
you may
we have
master
tried
that
to
particular
answer.
problem. Improve your critical thinking and you'll give yourself the tools to create your own effective solutions to a multitude of unfamiliar problems. Critical thinking refers to a diverse range of intellectual skills and activities concerned with evaluating information as well as our own thought in a disciplined way. When we're willing and able to examine our own capability as thinkers, acknowledging problems and weaknesses, this can help us refine our thought processes so that we learn to think and assess information in a more comprehensive way that increases our ability to identify and reject false ideas and ideologies.
What is the problem? According to Cengage Learning Corporation, a recent Student Engagement Insights survey of over 3,000 college students showed 99% of students believe critical thinking is an important skill for them to learn in the classroom. However, the students are not doing well at thinking, reasoning, analyzing, predicting, estimating, or problem solving, and many instructors still do not cover these types of lessons, despite the high value students place on them. Critical thinking is becoming more of an issue in our world today. It's not only a skill that is not being exercised enough in schools, but also a skill that has become problematic for professionals too. Why is it a problem? It is crippling students from being able to analyze and progress in different situations. It has not only become a difficult problem for students, but has been carried over to their career professionals after college graduation. When people do not think critically, they are generally unable to handle future challenges more skillfully. Critical thinking is an important tool in solving community problems and in developing interventions or initiatives in health, human services, and community development. What will happen if the problem is not solved? Students will continue to be crippled and cannot think or speak independently on topics that may impact their lives. They won't be able to resolve any complicated situations and may become more dependent on the thoughts of others. Students who won't be able to analyze a situation in real life, solve problems, communicate their position and voice logically, or make good decisions based on data rather than personal feelings. Also, students might not obtain better job opportunities due to their lack of applying critical thinking, which in the long run can lead to a low quality of life. Our proposed solution. We propose that students and teachers should be able to exercise playing the role of the devil's advocate within different discussion issues in a class. This can help students form questions from both sides of an argument or discussion. The teacher will also give examples that will help the students exercise their minds. Students can also practice formulating questions of their own from both positive and negative sides. We think that this will help students invigorate their minds on how to think critically on different situations, which will also carry over the same mentality during real-life situations. Here is a YouTube clip about Groupthink, which is referring to those who participate in group discussions and tend to follow the leader's thoughts on ideas and decisions, instead of thinking on their own. Thinking critically about issues and playing devil's advocate will allow us to think of the consequences of both sides of an issue before deciding on which idea is best, and will prevent us from following or making bad decisions.
1972 named Irving Janis. And this is Irving Janis. I'll give you a good picture of him. Groupthink is basically following the crowd. That's a way to think about it. When you get a group of people together, oftentimes the leader, often in business the CEO, will say something like, this is a good idea, and then everyone that works for him will say, oh yes, this is good. They all agree with him. They don't want to rock the boat. They certainly don't want to have independent thought or critical thought. And so we see this, constantly throughout business and making bad decisions. In fact, one of the things to avoid, and you can tell this in a good CEO, is that he doesn't want people around them, and I shouldn't say he, it could be her.
He or she.
He or she.
Thank you.
Yes. But they don't want people around them that totally agree with them at all times, because you end up making very poor decisions. We've seen it in politics, we've seen it in war, we've seen it in business, and so on. So when you think of the way you make decisions, one of the things that you need to be doing is critically thinking independently.
Yeah, listen to other points of view.
Yeah, that's very important, is listening to others and then thinking to yourself whether they're right or wrong. But you have to listen to all the other points of view critically. And so following groupthink or listening to people that agree with you all the time isn't the best way to make a decision and can lead you astray. Actually, really.
Like a lemming off a cliff?
Like a lemming off a cliff, exactly. And there'll be more of this. I'll post something in the blog online at riskandrewardtv.org about it. But basically, the following the crowd makes decision making easier, but not better. To make better decisions, listen to the ongoing opposing points of view and play devil's advocate with all of them. Then weigh the merits of each when you decide.
Here's a comic that portrays what our classrooms look like nowadays. We have students that are constantly writing and trusting everything that the instructors say, instead of questioning for themselves if the information makes sense or if it's actually true. We think that most students know that whatever is covered by the instructor in class will most likely be on the quiz or test. Usually instructors have their mind set on what and how they want the responses to be, so that students don't critically analyze or research more of the subject, but focus on responding in a way that is acceptable to the instructor in order to get full points. This comic displays that. Critical thinking is very useful for everyone. We think that it gives you more freedom to think and more options become available to you. Students can apply it to their studies and solve complicated issues that they are forced into, and then eventually make the best decisions. Playing the devil's advocate is only a class exercise, but it will develop into a practiced habit that one can do on their own. They will know the right questions to ask and prepare for the possible consequences on their own. Playing devil's advocate is a tip for developing your critical thinking skills. It is beneficial to look at all sides of an issue and the possible solutions. When an idea is proposed, try to think about what could go wrong or try another perspective of how the solution might be received. It's not that you are trying to shoot down others' ideas, you're just trying to see all sides of the puzzle before making a commitment. Research had been conducted a couple of years ago on several of the various universities on critical thinking methods used on students. One of the professors, Professor K, commented on her method of playing devil's advocate with her students. It was a method that was challenged her students' way of thinking by asking open-ended questions to push their thinking forward. When they responded, she held them responsible for their answers, and this kept them engaged. She believed that this taught them to take ownership of their decisions and be faced with the consequences of those decisions. Jonathan Ryan Davis, a professor from New York City University, says, "To better facilitate critical thinking and engagement, teachers can utilize the devil's advocate approach, which challenges students' existing beliefs and assumptions in order to foster a better understanding about the complexity of the issue being studied. When I employed devil's advocate approach in my classroom, students learned how to think critically by analyzing, evaluating, and creating, not just by rote memorization." Being able to critically think empowers us in many ways. It allows us to think on our own, decide on the best solutions, and contradict or prevent oneself from being in a negative situation. Without it, we're obligated to follow ideas that are provided by others. This may sound like a wise idea, but may only be good for the one presenting it. Thinking critically prepares us for the consequences of our decisions by asking probing questions. It makes our minds think quicker, formulate questions, and handle life situations a lot better without having to follow the ideas of others. Most students typically have no questions. They not only sit in silence, their minds are silent as well. Hence, the questions they have do tend to be superficial and ill-informed. This demonstrates that most of the time they're not thinking through the content that they're presumed to be learning. This demonstrates that they're not learning at all, really. If we want thinking, we must simulate it with questions that lead students to further questions, which can be simulated by the devil's advocate approach. We must resuscitate minds that are largely dead when we receive them. All teachers are capable of integrating the devil's advocate approach into their teaching toolbox. By establishing a classroom based on mutual respect and cooperative learning, teachers can alleviate the dialogue in their classroom to facilitate critical thinking. Teachers can achieve this by discussing controversial issues, providing students with multiple perspectives, and challenging students with tough questions. In such a classroom, students will become more engaged, and students' critically thinking and writing skills will be enriched. It is not simple to get this skill, but if the teacher really makes effort to teach them, they are going to develop the skill. Since they are in school, it can be a stage of preparation for them to apply to their critical thinking in their real-life jobs in the future. They may even have the capacity to be excellent directors, managers, and leaders in the company that they are working for in the possible future. Their quality of life will be much better. Students will be able to apply critical thinking in any situation of their lives. This presentation, with research behind it, is simply an example of what we believe would be the best solution to helping students, as well as teachers, improve students' critical thinking. It is both challenging and difficult, devil's advocate, but with practice, it can help anyone be prepared for whatever challenge, situation, life experience, or job situation be feasibly achieved or conquered.